The tempest roared down from the mountains like a wild creature. Gales shrieked through the valleys, dragging grit and rain so fierce it devoured the heavens. Elias Thornton, the reserved rancher who tended the last thriving spread along Willow Bend, battled through the deluge to secure the stable doors before the wind tore them from their moorings. He'd weathered storms before, the kind that shredded barriers and challenged resolve. But this one, it felt heavier, darker, as if the earth itself, where dawn's light spilled soft and amber over the peaks, casting rays across the sodden ground, was holding its breath. The storm passed, leaving the air sharp and fresh. Elias stood on the veranda, clutching a chipped mug of coffee, watching mist curl from the soil like a sigh. Behind him, the lodge was still, save for the soft snap of fading embers. He could still hear her gentle breathing, calm now, no longer the jagged rhythm of a soul coming undone. When Clara stirred at last, she squinted against the sunlight pouring through the narrow window. For a moment, her face clouded with uncertainty. Then memory surged back, and she rose slowly, pulling the quilt tight around her shoulders. "You stayed," she murmured, her voice soft. Elias turned, meeting her gaze. "Wasn't going anywhere," he said, pausing. "You had a hard night." She glanced at her hands, skin still chafed from clutching the reins in the downpour. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I must have looked a fool." He shook his head. "You looked human. Ain't nothing foolish about that." The word seemed to catch her off guard, as if she hadn't been called human in ages. He poured another mug of coffee and set it before her. She took it cautiously, the warmth soaking into her fingers. For a long spell she was silent, then spoke softly, almost to herself. "Henry used to brew coffee just like this, scorched and sharp." Elias gave a faint smile. "Guess I ain't much better at it," he said, his voice low. She looked at him, and for the first time her lips curved to a small, tentative smile. "No," she said, "you're better." Outside, the ranch stirred to life. Horses snorted in their pens. The air carried the scent of damp soil and cedar. Clara stepped outside, letting the breeze graze her face. "The world feels wide again. Too wide," she said, her voice distant. "I didn't mean to stay the night, but when I saw your lodge, I thought maybe I could rest." Elias leaned against the porch rail, arms crossed. "No need to explain," he said simply. She turned to him, eyes softening. "You don't get it," she said. "I wasn't just fleeing the storm. There's a man. My husband's brother, Gideon. He said I owed him what Henry left behind. Land, stock, everything. I told him it wasn't his to claim." Elias's brow creased. "And he didn't take kindly to that, did he?" She shook her head. "He said I didn't deserve a thing. Not even a roof over my head." Her voice dropped lower. "When I left, he trailed me halfway to the pass before the rain hit. I don't know if he's still out there." For a long time, Elias said nothing. He gazed at the far horizon, where the path snaked through the hills. Then, quietly, he said, "If he's comin', he'll find this place tough to crack." Something in his voice made her chest tighten. Not fear, but refuge. "You do that for me?" she asked, her voice catching. He nodded once. "You don't leave someone to the wolves. Not out here." The hours drifted by, filled with the quiet tasks of living. Clara helped hang damp linens by the hearth. She patched a frayed bridle, her hands steady now. Elias mended the fence the storm had battered. It wasn't said aloud, but there was a rhythm between them, a silent understanding neither wanted to let slip away. As afternoon light streamed through the window, Clara looked around the lodge. "It's calm here," she said softly, "like the world forgets to be harsh. For a spell." Elias glanced up from honing his blade. "The world's still harsh, just quieter about it here." She smiled, half sorrowful. "Maybe that's enough." When night fell, the air grew cool and crickets hummed in the grass. Clara stood by the window, staring into the distance. "Do you think he'll come?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias didn't look up from the fire he was stoking. "If he does, we'll be ready." She turned to him, her expression fragile but fierce. I'm tired of being scared, Elias. He met her gaze, the firelight dancing between them. Then don't be, he said simply. Fear only wins if you run. For a moment she just looked at him, this man of few words, this stranger who'd shown her more kindness in one night than others had in years. Then she stepped closer, her voice trembling. I don't know what I have done if you hadn't been here. He looked up, eyes steady. You'd have made it. You're tougher than you know. Her eyes glistened with quiet tears. I don't feel tough. You are, he said, his voice low and certain. You just forgot. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the night stretched vast and endless. But inside the lodge, the air was warm, filled with something unspoken, but real. For the first time since her husband's death, Clara felt her heart settle, no longer racing from fear, but from something else, something she didn't yet grasp, but didn't want to lose. That morning, through the veil of rain, he had seen her, a figure stumbling along the muddy path, her cloak clinging to her like a second skin. Ma'am, he called over the wind, running toward her. She didn't stop until she collapsed against him, shaking and drenched. Please, she gasped, don't let me go back there. Her eyes, wide and desperate, met his, eyes that had seen too much sorrow. He carried her inside without another word. The lodge was modest, but sturdy, a single room with a fire glowing in the hearth. He settled her by the flames, draped a quilt over her, and handed her a mug of hot coffee. She took it with trembling hands, her breath uneven. You're hurt, he said softly, noting the torn edge of her skirt and the mud streaking her arms. She shook her head. Not hurt, just lost. Elias knelt beside her, watching as she stared into the fire. I'm Elias, he said gently. You're safe here, ma'am. She looked up, lips quivering. Clara, she said at last. Clara Wade. He nodded once, the name settling like a vow. The widow Wade. He'd heard of her. Her husband had perished last winter in a quarry collapse near Iron Bluff. Folks said she'd stayed on at the homestead, clinging to what little remained. For a while, neither spoke. The only sounds were the wind screaming outside and the fire snapping in the hearth. She seemed smaller now, delicate in a way that stirred something unexpected in him. Not pity, but recognition. You came a long way, he said. She nodded. The storm caught me on the road. I thought maybe I'd find help at the old outpost, but it's gone now. Elias leaned back in the wooden chair across from her. You can stay till it passes, he said. Ain't much, but it's warm and dry. She looked at him, eyes heavy with fatigue. You don't even know me, she said. Don't need to, he replied. You're someone in need, that's enough. Something in his voice pierced her walls. She set the mug down, hands shaking again, and whispered, Don't stop. I need this. Her voice broke, not with longing, but with grief, the kind that piles up until it spills over. She pressed her face into her hands and wept, her shoulders trembling. Elias hesitated only a moment before moving closer. He wrapped his arms around her as she cried, saying nothing. Outside, the tempest raged on. Inside, her sobs quieted against his chest. He could feel her heart racing like a startled deer. You've been carrying this a long time, he murmured. She nodded against him. When Henry died, the house stopped feeling like home. Every sound, the wind, the creak of the floor, the silence, it all just told me I was alone. Elias's hold tightened slightly, steady and sure. You ain't alone now, he said, his voice low and warm like the fire casting shadows on the walls. She looked up at him, tears shining. Why are you kind to me? She asked. He paused, staring into the firelight. "Because once, someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. Maybe I'm just paying it back." The night deepened. The wind howled, but inside the small lodge, time slowed. Clara leaned against him, her breath evening out, her pain pouring out in quiet sobs, until exhaustion claimed her. He didn't move, didn't speak, just held her, as the fire burned low. And for the first time in years, Elias felt the silence wasn't empty. It was full of something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. Hope.